Billy Markus, the creator of Dogecoin, wants its price to reach $1.44 because then it would have a larger market cap than IBM. IBM traces its roots back to 1889, when the first of four companies that later merged into what we know today as International Business Machines was founded. IBM has 282,200 employees and a market cap of $210.27 billion. Billy, who worked for IBM at the time he created Doge, thinks it would be funny if it reached a market cap of more than $210.27 billion because it would be worth more than any place he has ever worked. That would be funny, sure. But Billy, do you know what's really funny? Let me tell you a story. Buckle up. I'm taking you to Venice. That's not Venice. That's Paris. I wish these guys had that thing that tells you which way to go. Oh, okay. We're going this way. And here we are. Republic of Venice. Around the 16th century. First, let me say this. The word bank comes from the Italian word banco, which means bench. Banco, bank. But the bench wasn't like this. It was more like this. On such benches, bankers did their business. Their business was primarily to exchange coins. In fact, this first banking was designed so that merchants could leave deposits in safekeeping, so that they would not have to carry big money with them around. The merchants left the money with the bankers, took the receipt, and with that receipt they could buy goods. Bankers made money on the money storage service. Since traders did not withdraw money often but traded with receipts, the bankers realized that they could lend the money left to them for safekeeping and earn additional interest. Since the sweetest money is the one that comes while you are doing nothing, bankers gave loans both left and right, often very risky loans. So, the banker's job was to keep his customers' money safe, and he naturally charged a fee for this service. But then, without the customer's knowledge, the banker lent the money to others and charged interest on it. Of course, since he was not lending his own money but someone else's, he was interested in lending as much as possible in order to make a bigger profit. He did not care whether the borrower would be able to repay it. Because of this practice, it often happened that the borrower simply, disappeared. And then when the customers, who again had paid to have their money kept safe, came to collect the deposit, the banker had nothing to give them. The scammed and pissed off customers would then break the bench, often on the banker's head. A broken bench is called bancarotto in Italian, hence the modern word bankrupt. You would think this fraudulent practice would be banned right away because, it's fraudulent. But don't go anywhere just yet. I want to introduce you to John Law. Let me tell you something about this dude. John Law was born in 1671 in Scotland into a family of bankers and goldsmiths. He joined the family business at the age of 14, but after the death of his father in 1688, he neglected the family business and went to gamble and chase women. He then killed a man here, was sentenced to death here, and then escaped from this prison. Having gathered all the necessary experience, he was ready to open a bank. John Law initially wanted to establish a national bank in Scotland, but the Scots politely told him off. So Law went to France. Yup, that's the place. A bunch of royalties lived here. Royalties are people who declare themselves rulers. They convince everyone that they have something that no one else has, blue blood, which is not true, and that they are able to do something that no one else can, to waste people's money, which is true. So special they have ruled for centuries with the help of nepotism. One of them was Louis XIV. His considerable foreign, military and domestic expenditure impoverished and bankrupt France. After his death in the early 18th century, the government was deeply in debt and taxes were high. Obviously, some things never change. The taxes were paid only by ordinary people, but not by the upper class. John Law, who, let me remind you, was a gambler, convicted murderer, and fugitive, became the best buddy with the nephew of Louis XIV, the Duke of Orleans. The Duke became regent of France after the king's death in 1715. The regent served as a ruler, while the heir to the throne, 5-year-old Louis XV, was still a minor. Since it doesn't matter what you know, but who you Since it doesn't matter that you are scum, but who you know, in 1716 Law opened a bank, the Banque Générale. The bank could issue paper money, or banknotes, and the paper notes would be supported by the bank's assets of gold and silver. But hey, there wasn't enough silver and gold, and John and his buddies wanted to make monies. So John came up with the innovative idea of issuing paper money in much larger quantities than there was precious metal. He gave that worthless paper on loan, today you know it as credit, the procedure of lending money which you do not have in order to earn interest is known to you today as fractional reserves. In essence, paper that had no support in gold was given in exchange for things that had real value. One of those real values is, for example, a company. In August 1717, Law founded a company called the Mississippi Company and then bought several smaller companies that became part of it. The French government gave the Mississippi Company control of trade between France and its Louisiana and Canadian colonies. A colony, which means I broke into your house and stole everything you have, was exploited with the help of companies that sent stolen wealth to their country. The Mississippi Company was one of them. America was a large distant land about which the French did not know much. Many didn't even know where it was. Law made a propaganda campaign in which he described Louisiana as a land where honey and milk flow, full of gold and silver. He was selling shares in the company and his propaganda brought in many investors. Shares in the Mississippi Company started at around 500 livres per share in January 1719. By December of the same year, share price reached 10,000 livres, an increase of 1,900% in just under a year. The market became so seductive that people from the working class began investing whatever small sums they could scrape together. In January 1720, as some investors sold shares to turn capital gains into gold, stock prices began falling. Since he had no gold, Law restricted any payment in gold that was more than 100 livres. This led to panic among investors and the share price continued to fall. They hid and lied about what was really happening, but the French government was eventually forced to admit that the number of paper notes being issued by the bank exceeded the value of the amount of metal coinage it held. In 1720, Law left behind both France and the Mississippi Company, and France was left with no choice but to raise taxes to compensate for the losses incurred. But you would think that this kind of fraudulent practice would be banned because, it's fraudulent. But no. Not only did John Law's bank become the National Bank of France, but all the rulers were delighted with how easy it was to steal money from the people that all the countries opened the same banks. After 293 years, one night in your underwear, blissfully unaware of what was about to happen, you created Dogecoin, which will hopefully end this centuries-old scam forever. That's what I find funny. My name is V. Subscribe.